In this video, we're looking at strings. A quick reminder, a string is essentially just text, something you could write down on paper. So with string variables, there's a few things we can do with them. We can add them together. We can slice them, meaning we take a specific part of the string that we want. We can iterate over them, meaning we can look through each of the letters individually in a structured way. And then there are methods associated with the string object or a string variable. Things like splitting the string into a specific character, replacing a specific character in the string with a different character, or finding where in a string a specific character occurs. We can also use built-in Python functions on a string. The most classic is figuring out how long a string is using the len function, the leng function, short for length. So let's start with doing some string addition. I'm going to make a variable named first, and I'm going to assign my name, Stephen, to that variable. Then last, I'm going to assign Kawe to that variable. And I'm going to make a variable named full name. What we're going to do is we're going to take the variable first, which contains a string. We're going to add that to a space, and then we're going to add that to the variable named last, which contains a string. So let's go ahead and run these. So I'm going to run things, and you'll see when I run it, you'll see it run in the console. And the variable explorer here will show us when a variable is assigned a value, what the value is there. So first, I'm going to hit F9 when I'm on that line or when I'm highlighting something. That's going to run it, and it's going to say the variable named first is a string type with the value steven. So those are the characters in the string. I'll run last, and we get the same result. And then when I run this, what it's going to do is it's going to take first, which is the string Stephen. It's going to take last, which is the string Kawe. It's going to take a space, which is the string space. It's going to add those three strings together in this order. And so we'll get Stephen space Kawe from adding the strings together. Great. So now let's move on to string slicing. Say we have a file name, and it's my file, and we've got a date, 11/13/2019. Maybe this is yesterday at the day of recording, and it's a text file. Now, if our goal is to remove the .txt from this, because we don't want that .txt in whatever process we're doing downstream, we can say, I want a variable named full name, and I'm going to take the variable file name, I'm going to slice it. So what you're looking at here is a slice. So it implies from the beginning to the end, if nothing's there, and this colon represents the things in between. So for my file, if I want to remove this .txt part, I can count from the beginning. I'll say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So you'll notice I started counting at 1. So let's redo that using Python indexing, where you start at 0. So we'll go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So 0 to 17. So there's 18 total things inside of here. So what I'm going to say here in my slice is I want to start at 0. So I can put a 0, or I can let it imply that we want to start at 0. I'll explicitly put it in just for our sake. So I'll say from 0. And this was character number 17. And so we want to go up until 18. So we're not going to include this bound, but we're going to go up until it. So let's go ahead and run file name. So we have our variable file name up here. Now let's go ahead and get a variable full name, which is the result of slicing this variable at these indices. So we're slicing from 0 up until, but not including 18. So let's run that, and now we get my file, 11/13/2019. So we went all the way up until, so 18 represents the period, we went up until then. Okay, so there's an easier way to do this. Instead of counting forward, we can also count backwards. So here, we'll go from 0, I'm going to imply it this time, up until -4. So this is up until, so we go -1, -2, -3, -4. So we're going to go until -4. We run this and we'll get the same result, so this won't actually change. But if we go down here and highlight this part, we're just going to run this specific line of code. So we're going to take the file name, which is this string, and we're going to slice it up until the -4th index, so up until this period. And down here, it shows the resulting string, which is what we saved here on the under the full name. So for additional practice, let's go ahead and get the file. And that'll be file name up until what? So we start at 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we'll go up until the 7th, but we won't include it. So that'll be our file. So we come here and file is now my file. And then if we just grab the date, that's going to be the file name from, so this was the 7th. So you want to start at the 8th and go 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So we'll start at the 8 and go to 17, or alternatively, or sorry, we would go to 18 because we want to go up until it. Or alternatively, we can go to the -4 here. So our date is now 11/13/2019. We can run it down here. I hit F9 when it's highlighted, and we get the date right there. So now we've done some string slicing in order to grab the parts of the string that we actually are interested in. The next thing is string iteration. This allows us to look at each individual character in a string. So I'm just going to say for character in file name, so I'm going to say for each character in the string that's represented by this variable name, just print off that character. So another way of thinking about this, it doesn't matter what word goes here. I could say for each instance, because I'm iterating over something. I like character because it seems like semantically meaningful. We'll run this and watch down here. We're going to print in this console each character. And it's going to be print off the M and then the Y and then the underscore. And so my file 11/13/2019.txt. So what it did is it went through each of the characters in this string and it printed them off. So that's iterating through the string. So that's using the string as an iterator. Now, we can use the built-in methods associated with a string object or a string variable here. And we'll do some simple ones. So let's say we have a list of temperatures, but unfortunately, that list is stored as a string. So here's the temperatures we were given, and we actually want those as numbers. So how do we do that? Well, a quick way is we can at least get them as individuals. We can get a list of temps. And what we'll do is we'll take temperatures, and when we split it, we'll use the split method. So let me just go ahead and go back. So temperatures is a string object, or a string type variable. So if I use this period after it, I can access its attributes and methods. Attributes have data that describe what temperatures is, and methods allow us to like apply a function, a built-in function on this thing. So we're going to do split, and we're going to split it at the comma space. So what split's going to do is it's going to make a list where each instance of the list is separated by the string I tell it to separate it by. So in our case, it's going to start making a list, and it's going to hit this comma space, and so it'll know that this is the first instance. Then it'll keep moving, and it'll hit the comma space, so it'll know 200 is the second instance. Let's just go ahead and run it. So I'm going to run temperatures, and I'm going to run this function. See down here, so it grabs 100, 200, 300, 400, and 500. But because it's split on the comma space, those aren't included in the lists. So let me go ahead and run this, and we can look at lists temps and open it up, and we see there's 100, 200, 300, 400, 500. Now when we work with lists, I'll actually show you how to convert those into floats. But for now, I'll show you just how to convert a single string into a float when we get into the built-in functions. Now before we do that, let's go ahead and look at a replace really quick too. Let's say we have a chemical formula, and someone decided that it was in their best interest when they were collecting data to use a bracket instead of a parenthesis for each group in our chemical formula. Now that's fine, but let's say we have like a built function that can parse a chemical formula for us, but it doesn't know that square brackets designate a group. What we can do is we can replace a square bracket with its equivalent parenthesis using the replace function. So what we're doing is we're telling it to replace this specific string with this other specific string. So in our case, the first thing it'll do is it'll reach into the formula. It'll replace the square brackets with these parentheses. So let's go ahead and define formula. And keep your eye up here. I'm going to go to the next line, and I'm going to run the formula.replace, and I'm going to redefine formula with that output. So formula is first a string, and then it's redefined as this new string. Okay. So keep your eye up here on formula and watch this character and this character. They're replaced. Boom. But now these characters also need to be replaced. So I'm going to copy this line of code, and I'm going to switch it so that it's a square, so it's the right bracket and the right parenthesis. So formula has now been updated at this point, so it will feed the updated formula into here. When I run that, it's going to fix those as well. Now our chemical formula has a more universal representation. And we'll just go ahead and skip the find. Find is essentially the same thing again. Now lastly, let's look at two built-in functions. First, let's just get the length. In fact, let's print the length of the formula. So this is going to return 18 in our console. So it's saying formula has 18 characters in it, and indeed it does. It has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So each character is counted when I get the length of my string. I could also do something like, let's say I have my temperatures, and I have it as a string. So temp is equal to 100, and I want that as a float. So we come up here, temp is a string. You can see from the type, I want to convert it to a float. There's a built-in function for Python where I can say temp is equal to the float of 100, and it's going to try its best to parse this and make sure it's just numbers, and those numbers can be converted into a float. And when we do it, temp is now a float, and notice it has some sort of precision associated to it, namely it's 100.0. We could also make it an int. When we run this, it's just a flat 100. Now for a temperature, it's more appropriate to be a float, so we'll leave it as a float. And that should cover how to work with strings, how to add them, how to slice them, iterate over them, which you'll sometimes do but rarely, how to look at the built-in methods. For the full list, this website has a good listing of them, and then there's links to each of them and how they use them. So how to use string methods, and then finally how some built-in functions can operate on strings. So remember, the built-in function operates on the string, so the string is an argument, whereas the method, you do string dot run a method, and you give the arguments to the method inside the parentheses. Okay, the next video will cover working with numbers, and then from there we'll move on to lists and tuples, and then a few videos later we'll talk about dictionaries. But that should cover it for now. Good luck.